You're listening to the Weekend Sport Podcast with Jason Pine from News Talk ZB.
Away to Wayne Smith. A strong run by Wayne Smith. And a brilliant try for Wayne Smith. The most brilliant solo try has been scored by Canterbury's first 5'8" Wayne Smith. And that could see the Shield go south.
Talking of great commentators, Keith Quinn there commentating on Wayne Smith's try in the 1982 Ranfurly Shield Challenge. Wayne Smith's autobiography is out and it is a beauty. He is, of course, one of our great rugby minds, having played and coached at the very highest level, earning the nickname The Professor. His playing time with Canterbury, the All Blacks, our Seven side, and then in Italy are all covered in this book, and every part of his fascinating and glittering coaching journey is also visited, including World Cup wins with both the All Blacks and the Black Ferns. The book is called Smithy, Endless Winters and the Spring of 22. Wayne Smith is with us. Congratulations on the book, Wayne. It's a beauty. How you doing?
Oh, g'day, Jace. Yeah, thanks. Been a uncomfortable period, I think, for me with all the publicity and everything about the book launch. But it's more or less over now. I think you're the second last interview.
Oh, good. Well, I'll try not to make it too painful for you and try to come up with some original questions. I want to start at the start of the book, which is kind of the end of the journey to this point. 70-odd magnificent pages on the Black Ferns World Cup win last year. When you think back about your time in that environment with that team, what stands out to you the most?
I was surprised for a start getting put into that role. It wasn't really something I was looking for. I was happy to add advice to the coaching team and be sort of like a mentor, but as things transpired with the mental health allegations and then the review, it became difficult for the coaches to stay in there. So that's the first thing. It was a surprise. Second thing, I had worked with women players quite a bit in the 80s because of Laurie O'Reilly being my sort of coaching mentor, and he was involved deeply with women's rugby. But I've been in the men's game for a long time, so I think the level of their skills was made an impression on me straight away, how good they were and their dedication to learning. So they didn't just learn during the training, they didn't just learn by talking to me or the other coaches. They learned by organising their own sessions at night on a tactical mat, or a rugby field that we had with numbered discs on it. They would often get on the mic on the bus on the way home from training, so we went to "Good today, girls, let's get upstairs tonight, 7:30, and get on that mat." And so, I think that dedication to the game and to the learning and also the understanding that it is still a game and you've got to have fun, I think they were some key things for me.
It came off the back of, obviously, a fairly challenging back end to 2021 with those losses to France and England over in the Northern Hemisphere. How long did it take you, Wayne, to think, you know what, we are a shot at winning a Rugby World Cup on home soil?
Well, the first thing was it was an unfair contest, I thought, in Europe. I went back and looked at the games, obviously. I was aware of the context. The girls have come out of COVID mandates, very little coaching time. There'd been a professionalisation of the game over in France and England, so they were ahead in that area. They were full-time trainers. There's a discrepancy between the preparation of the two teams. And then one thing was obvious looking at the games was that we needed to change our game. We probably weren't going to be able to mix it up front for long periods with France and England. We needed to use the ability of the athleticism and the ability of our forwards to join the backs and play a really attacking game and try and fatigue the other teams, run them off their feet, basically, was the term. But you can't just do that. I mean, you've got to spend a lot of time learning the skills associated with that, but also the decision-making part, learning from each play, knowing where the space is now, giving a solution and then attacking those spaces. So there's a lot of work to do, but it was really enjoyable. And the group was, or all the groups that we had a lot of different women come in during the year, but they were all enthusiastic and very able.
What a journey. What a journey. Do you reckon you were more nervous at the end of that game or at the end of the 2011 Rugby World Cup final?
There's a slightly different feeling. So the end of the 2011 final against France, I'd actually moved up to where the water cooler was because my ribs were getting sore from Ted's elbow jamming into them. And, you know, it hadn't been easy 8 years for us. You know, whilst we'd won 89 tests out of 103, which was incredible, but we hadn't won a World Cup, and that was a measuring stick. And so, you know, it was all on the table, and I don't know where I'd be living now if we didn't win that game. I don't know what I'd be doing now. We would have escaped somewhere, I think.
You wouldn't be doing quite so many book interviews, probably.
No, that's right. Might have been a different sort of book. So the difference was that was sort of a culmination of those 8 years. It had been hard. It was tough on family, and you know, it was a relief as much as a joy winning that. The women's one was probably less expected. I think most people were sort of okay with the fact that we do our best out there. We see them go. We see them close the gap. Play a game that the country want to see, that reflects our DNA, and then just see how we go. And so a bit of, you know, it was one of the great events in my life, but a bit of that is around, as a wee bit of a surprise, you know, where we'd come from. And so that made it doubly enjoyable, I think, for me. It wasn't so tense as much as it was exhilarating.
Let's go back to your playing days, which started in Waikato, then took you to Canterbury for some very famous years, 35 games for the All Blacks, 17 of those were test matches. When do you reckon you were playing your best rugby? Well, I wasn't a great at the game. That was one thing I want to make clear. But I wanted to be in great teams, and you don't have to be a great at the game to contribute to a great team. You just got to have that real consistent intent, you know, to train hard and to play the best you can, and then you can be a cog in a team. So I just think the quality of the teams sort of reflected my game, probably. You know, I've just had a function down at Belfast Club, which changed my life. Been at Belfast Community Club with huge support. I got some lucky breaks there, and a lot of people changed my life. You know, Laurie O'Reilly clearly as a coach, mentor for me, but Alec Wiley was a massive influence on me. Firstly, as a captain of that early Canterbury team I was playing for, but then as a coach, and I think he's underrated as a coach. You know, Dougie Bruce clearly as his assistant helped me strategically. You know, as a former All Black first five. Grizz was a really smart coach. He's a smart player. Tactically very strong, and I think all of that team loved our whole environment, and they were the best years of our lives, I think. I played inside Warwick Taylor and Victor Simpson, who to me were the best in the world at the time. You know, not many people would have rated them as that, maybe, but to me they were. And I had Bruce Deans inside me, and, you know, it was just a pleasure being a part of all of that. And so I don't think there's one point that I'd say was better than any other in my performance. I always tried to be that part of that team, you know, and try and do my best to not let them down and do as well as I could. And that never changed for me, really, whether it was Belfast, Canterbury or the All Blacks. I wasn't good enough to not approach them all seriously, so I did. I took them all. I approached every game as if it was a test match, probably. That try you scored against Wellington at Athletic Park to win the Shield for Canterbury in 1982. I was there, actually, 11-year-old boy with a Wellington scarf on. Smithy, it's haunted me ever since. But how fond are your memories of that try in that day?
Well, actually, if you go on YouTube, I think it's on YouTube, and you see the try that I blew just before that. So it was in exactly the same spot, and I passed the ball to Craig Green, who was outside me, right on the goal line, basically. And Cedarwell, who'd come on at fullback for Alan Hewson, Brian Cedarwell, he head-eye tackled me. You want to see it on YouTube. It's a beauty. I go back about 3 metres with a stiff arm. And the referee ruled that the ball went forward. And my argument to him was, I went backwards, the ball went across field. But no, he wouldn't listen. And so, yeah, so the next time I got the opportunity, I decided just to pin my ears back and have a crack with myself. It was a bit like Forrest Gump, wasn't it? Just kept running, and the water sort of parted, the waves parted, and I was able to get through.
Yeah, no great surprise that Brian Cedarwell gave you a head high, to be fair, but it's probably a different conversation. At what point during your playing career did you decide that coaching was what you wanted to do when you finished playing?
Well, you've got to remember, we all played in the amateur era. You only had one coach normally. We were lucky at Canterbury with Grizz and Dougie. But at the All Black level, it was basically one coach. And so that's a bit difficult, when you're splitting up between backs and forwards. So often the coach would say, if Graham Murray was in charge, or Andy Dalton or Jock Hobbs, take the forwards away. And then towards the end of my career, it was Smithy, take the backs away, just through longevity. I'd been there quite a while. And so you sort of, the players ran the team to a certain amount. There's a lot of importance placed on player ownership. And it was due to logistics as much as anything. There just weren't the coaches there that you'd have today. So there was a different way. And I just, look, I wasn't coaching, but I could set up the plays and we could run through them and that sort of thing. And then at the end of my career, so Grant Fox came through as sort of, my apprentice, I suppose, or the young player coming through to take over from the older player. And I soon realised the young player was going to be way better than the older player. so I decided that it was time to leave. Plus, working full time, training constantly, training for multiple teams, club, Canterbury, All Blacks, away on long tours, had twin sons. So when they were 3, we decided I would finish and we went to Italy. And so I was a player coach for a small club in Italy called Casale sul Sile, a small club but a strong club. And I learnt a whole new way of coaching there. Compared to, we're pretty analytical with our coaching in New Zealand, a lot of skill training, a lot of unit training, backs separate from forwards. Italy was more a French global style, so more game-based learning, changing the size of the field, the numbers of the players to achieve certain things. So that's basically how I grew as a coach, asking questions of players rather than telling them, making sure that they had self-awareness and they were understanding and it would stay in their heads. And so when I came back to New Zealand, that's the way I coached. And you mentioned the term professor, but I was known as a mad professor, basically. And it wasn't a positive term. It was just that I was different to what people expected. I was different to Alec. Why I was different to the other coaches, but it wasn't professional, and that's the way I wanted to be. I just wanted to coach the way that I thought was right and the way that I enjoyed, and it wasn't my career. I was working as well, so I just went down that line really, and then it never changed.
Enjoying a chat with Wayne Smith, whose autobiography is out. Wayne, can we continue chatting about your coaching and the Crusaders teams that you guided to Super Rugby success in 1998 and again in 1999? What was at the heart of those sides and the success that you had?
Culture, a growth of our identity. You got to remember, it only started in '96, Super Rugby. Crusaders, more than any other, I think, battled with an identity. Canterbury had such a strong following, red and black. There's a big anti-Auckland feeling down there, as you know. And I don't think people quite bought into the fact that we weren't going to be playing just in red and black anymore. There was a bit of white in there, and that players from all around the country could play for us, including Aucklanders. And so that was the struggle, was getting the region on board. There was a review done at one point about after that first year when the Crusaders had got last, and some interesting points came to that. One of them was that the people didn't seem to be that interested in entertainment from the game. It was more they wanted players to roll their sleeves up and leave everything they had out on the track for them. And so that was us. We based our those first 2 years, we sort of built what a Crusader man would look like. We used different theming for that. One really powerful one was Henry V and his Battle of Agincourt speech on St. Crispin's Day, around we lucky few, or we happy few, we band of brothers, that speech. And so little things like that, I think, started to get the players thinking that we can be special, and if we live up to what we say we're going to do, we give ourselves a chance. And that's how we evolved. And we knew we had some stars as well that hadn't been recognised. Probably we had, the jewels in the crown were Justin Marshall and Andrew Mertens, no doubt about that. But there were others coming through, like a Tawai Matson, Todd Blackadder, a great player, but a great coach, great person. There were all sorts of players coming through that we knew if we worked hard and we stayed true to what we were building, we gave ourselves opportunities.
Your relationship with the All Blacks in a coaching sense, Smithy, it's jeepers, it certainly had its ups and downs, hasn't it? Technical advisor to John Hart, 98, then let go, then invited back in, 99 Rugby World Cup, of course, head coach, then your honesty led to John Mitchell being chosen ahead of you, and under Sir Graham Henry, or just Graham Henry as he was then, 2007 Rugby World Cup, the ill feeling towards you, and then 2011 and 2015. How do you reflect on it, and in particular the tough times that you went through as part of the All Blacks coaching setup?
Yeah, well, the tough times are all part of the deal, aren't they? And they help shape who you are and how you cope with things. Not easy. Particularly that sort of 2007 through 2011 wasn't easy at all. Down in Canterbury, probably we should have got the sack. If you're looking at how we'd performed at that World Cup, I don't think any of us would have complained if we hadn't got the job again in 2007. Robbie Deans was the favourite down in Canterbury through his playing deeds, with us during that Shield era, but also as a great coach with Crusaders. So, no one was probably more surprised than us when we got the call to say we'd been retained. But, fair to say it didn't go down that well. I don't know about the rest of the country, but it didn't go too well around Canterbury. We embarked on making sure we're getting around the community. I spoke at a couple of clubs and that sort of thing, and it was pretty confronting. And so I suppose it made that 2011 win way more important, certainly for me. I felt it justified that decision that was made in 2007, regardless of the fact we'd won like 3 Grand Slams and we'd won all the Bledisloe contests and we'd won the most Tri-Nations of any team. It was still the yardstick was the World Cup. And, as I said before, if we hadn't won that, I don't know where we'd be.
Every time you've been asked to help out with the All Blacks and more recently the Black Ferns, Smithy, you've always said yes. You've always answered the call. You didn't have to. given some of the stuff that you'd been through, why do you think you said yes every time?
Well, love of the game, love of the All Blacks. I had a poster of Ian Kirkpatrick up on my wall when I was a kid. And I was a skinny little back from Patauru, but he was my hero, and I guess I dreamed from an early age about what that must be like. What would it be like to be like him? And I don't know, I just grew up with this real love of the game, but also competitive streak. And, I'd been told that I was never going to be much good when I was in the Waikato. And I think if you looked at me on the outside, the coach there was probably right. I was at Waikato University, but I was travelling for Patauru. I was travelling back home to play in Patauru. And I wasn't high performance, and I didn't look like I was high performance. I was about 74 kilos at the time. Didn't have the skill level that probably was required at that point, but I knew I had it inside me, and that's the first coaching lesson I learnt, was that don't just measure people on the outside. You've got to look what they've got on inside them, because that's often what determines where you go in life. And I had a drive that, as I said before, not to be a great player, but to be part of great teams and to do my bit. And that's what drove me. And so I'm still the same. If I get the call, it's hard to turn it down.
Well, I'm glad you said yes every time. Absolutely glad you said yes every time. How do you reckon the All Blacks are tracking at the moment? How do you assess where they are? Quarterfinal coming up, Rugby World Cup. Where do you put them in terms of their ability to win it all at the back end of October?
Well, we've clearly got the ability. No matter how you look at it, you look at that Italian game, and if you're sitting in a crow's nest for the America's Cup and looking at the horizon for the wind changes, the wind change for rugby, I think, is going to be there'll be things like lower tackles brought in, option for more offloads, and that's the sort of game hopefully we'll see in the future, where the All Blacks were exhilaratingly good. Italy, unfortunately, were exhilaratingly bad, but they were exhilarating because they were trying hard, and the game was exhilarating. And I think we've got that ability. Whether we can maintain that level and handle that pressure mentally, that's a different thing. That's about identity and culture, and Fozzie and the crew will be working hard on that. But certainly I think we've got the ability to win it, and to win it with a powerful, exciting, ball-moving game.
And then beyond this, obviously you take up your new role, performance coach for the Black Ferns and All Blacks. Have you worked out what you're going to be doing yet? Because I remember when you got the job, you were like, well, I'm not really sure, but we'll see what happens.
Well, yes, I've been with the Black Ferns at a couple of camps, and they've got very, very good coaching team. So Alan Bunting, he's a hero, a legend with the Sevens women, winning Olympic gold and World Cups, constantly best in the world. So he runs the show. They've got strong understanding of who they are and who each other is, and there's a lot of vulnerability and social capital in that team, and he's created a lot of that. So it's a really positive environment. The coaches, so Mike Delaney was head coach of Bay of Plenty, chosen to go into the women's game, very open. We'd had him 1 year in the All Blacks, so I know him well. Very, very open to new ideas, keen to keep learning. Great, I think, great quality as an attack coach. Tony Christie, the same from Canterbury, young coach, taking the defence, but very innovative, well thought of by the girls. So it's a really exciting 3 years coming up, I think. Steve Jackson's come from head coach of North Harbour to be the forward coach. And it's hard to explain to people what that environment's like. It's just so tight, so excited, and so much fun. So I really enjoy going in there, and I just give my opinion on what I see and maybe how we can not change things, but add to things as they grow, improve the quality of or the difficulty of the activities. Don't worry about the mistakes, because if they're not making mistakes, it's not hard enough. And you've got to make the trainings hard and really push them. So I'm really enjoying that. With Razor, we haven't done much yet. So he and I meet up once the World Cup's over, and I don't know what that's going to look like, but he and I are great mates, go back a long way. I have different ideas, he's got different ideas. It'll be, at the very least, it'll be stimulating.
You might have to add another couple of chapters when in a couple of years I might be talking to you again about about what do they call it, an addendum to your book where you add some more chapters in.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because through the 40 hours of transcripts, and then I was in Europe, Trish and I were in Europe for a while, and Phil Gifford was sending me all the chapters coming through, and we were sort of editing together, and I had a whole lot of other stories that I wanted in there, that some of them got lost. I lost some of them. Some of them got confused in different areas. I'm going to have mates ringing me and saying, why didn't you mention me in the book?
Yep.
So I do want to print another one maybe next year and add in the stories that I missed out so I can keep my mates.
Well, that's crucial. That's important. Look, I look forward to reading the extra bits as well. Smithy, great to chat, mate. The book's a cracker. I really, really enjoyed reading it, and
thanks.
and your thoughts on the game, your thoughts on life, and the people you've come into contact with. I really, really enjoyed the read. Thanks for taking so much time to have a chat to us this afternoon as well.
Thanks, mate. I really appreciate that.
No, I appreciate your time, Smithy. Wayne Smith. His book's out. Smithy, Endless Winters in the Spring of 22. He's written it with Phil Gifford. It is one that I would highly recommend to you.
For more from Weekend Sport with Jason Pine, listen live to News Talk ZB weekends from midday, or follow the podcast on iHeartRadio. Murray Deaker is back with a brand new podcast. Murray Deaker's Sporting Lives will interview legends of sport, uncovering their stories.
Devon Conway. It was a real surprise when you belted your hand into your bat and broke your hand in the T20 semi-final.
Yeah, massive learning curve, Murray. And when I made that mistake and punched my bat, it was certainly something I regretted instantly.
New episodes each week on iHeartRadio or wherever you get your podcasts. Murray Deaker's Sporting Lives, brought to you by Gold Sport.